There's a morality tale being told there with the Titanic, this idea of, this unsinkable ship that, of course, on its first voyage sank. There's this sense of hubris that gets paid by destroying this undestroyable thing.
Claimed unsinkable, the RMS Titanic was a ship that shocked millions, even before its legendary sinking on the fateful night in 1912. The construction began on March 31, 1909. Weighing 52,310 tons, it consisted of 16 sections which included doors that could be closed from the bridge, so water could be contained in case of an emergency. The ship was made especially to accommodate the first class, since the ship featured a prodigious amount of luxuries, such as a first-class dining area, a swimming pool, and 4 elevators. Additionally, its nickname, Millionaire Special, was a name pinned for the ship due to its majority of wealthy individuals, and its captain, Edward J. Smith, was acknowledged as the Millionaire's captain. After 3 years of construction, on March 31, 1912, the construction was completed, and a month later, the RMS Titanic began its maiden voyage.
The vessel began to approach a region known to have icebergs, and yet continued at the same speed ahead. At 11:40 at night, about 400 miles south of Newfoundland, Canada, the ship struck an iceberg. There was an order to abandon the ship. Lifeboats immediately began to launch. Children, women, and, as expected of the Gilded Age, the wealthy were prioritized. Lax safety regulations required for lifeboats to be sufficient enough for only half of the passengers on board. Even though the crew attempted to get more people on each lifeboat, the boats fled at less than full capacity, leaving more lives to be needed saving.
And this disaster struck, and right on in its wake comes World War I, the lost generation. In some cases, you can point to that event as almost a turning point in 20th century history, a passage into more turbulent times.
As a smaller ship named the Californian was sighted nearby, the Titanic immediately shot up rocket signals and distress calls. However, the Californian continued on its way. The lax regulations allowed amateurs to interfere with radio signals, disrupting the Titanic's calls for help. The Titanic sank 2 hours and 20 minutes after the strike and submerged at 2:20 a.m. on April 15th. The Carpathia, a British passenger liner, received a distress call from the captain of the Titanic and came to help survivors 1 hour after the Titanic's ultimate sink. The ship could carry around 1,700 passengers, and they saved around 750 survivors through lifeboats. As the Titanic had over 2,200 people on board with only 20 lifeboats, not all of the passengers could be rescued safely. John R. Royce, banker and passenger on the Carpathia, stated to the New York Times newspaper,
"The screams of the people who remained on board rose in a terrible wail to the sky. The sound of it still lingers in my ears. It was the most horrible thing I ever heard."
Ultimately, more than 1,222 men, women, and children drowned.
John McCam, a Time magazine reporter, critiqued the event, saying, "It's all fascinating. The great lesson of the disaster, that no matter how smart we think we are, how skilled, how technologically advanced, we remain at the mercy of events beyond our control."
America and other countries, including the British, proposed numerous safety regulations. The Radio Act of 1912 was passed in Congress, which created strict standards that forever changed the radio system of the U.S.
Presumption was what killed the Titanic. Presumption that technology relieves us from prudence. Presumption that intelligent regulation will eliminate fear and pain. Presumption that we have achieved exemptions from the dangers that plagued earlier generations. Presumption that nature can be driven out with a well-intentioned pitchfork.